The Premier League no longer competes with the Bundesliga, La Liga or Serie A. It's not even competing with the Champions League. This season, the league has stepped into a completely different arena. Its biggest rival now is Netflix. These are the annual content budgets of Netflix, Amazon and other entertainment giants. And right next to them, what the Premier League spent in just 2 transfer windows this season. In both cases, they are investing in their final products, built to hold your attention. One creates shows, the other builds squads. But the logic behind the spending is exactly the same. To keep you inside their product for as long as possible, to get into your head and to turn you into a loyal fan of their worlds. And that's the trick. In the Premier League, the transfer window isn't a market anymore, it's a season. And every signing is just another episode. So let's hit play. 76 players were signed for more than £20 million during the summer window. Every single club in the league brought in at least one player at that level. 8 clubs smashed their all-time transfer records, and Liverpool did it twice. In the process, the Reds set a new benchmark for the Premier League and confidently entered the list of clubs involved in the top 10 most expensive transfer in football history. But there is one key difference. No one in that elite group had ever pulled off 2 top 10 signings in a single transfer window. The rest of Europe has drifted so far behind in the investments they make into their product that the gap can't be closed anymore. At this point, they are basically different industries that still get labeled as the same thing. Football. By the end of this summer window, things had gone so far that many fans and even experts were already suggesting we stop paying attention to the numbers when it comes to the Premier League. This is just the new scale, they say. That's simply how it works now. It's like your neighbor at the gaming cafe suddenly unlocked an infinite money cheat code, and all you can do is watch. Except this isn't a game, not even close. The madness we're seeing in the Premier League today doesn't stop at England's borders. It's reshaping the entire football world, and even how football positions itself as a product. Record-breaking transfers in the Premier League are no longer driven by desperation for sporting success or by the idea that the winning is the final goal. They happen because spending has become an essential part of the content business cycle. A constant flow, noise, chasing competitors, endless discussion, a system where stopping even for a moment means falling behind. In that logic, a transfer is no longer just a tool to strengthen the squad, it becomes content. A way to hold attention, to launch a new storyline, to create the illusion of progress, even when nothing fundamentally changes on the pitch. And this is where the classic model of European football starts to crack. The model where sporting results were the foundation and everything else was built around them, not the other way around. Eventually, though, even the league started freaking out about the numbers. Over the past few years, clubs and league officials have openly acknowledged that the existing regulatory framework had effectively become a fiction. It measured losses over a 3-year cycle rather than real-time risk and resource consumption, while allowing welfare clubs to keep spending with virtually no hard limits. So, last year, after a lot of back and forth, they finally pulled the trigger on a new setup, the squad cost ratio, alongside a set of financial resilience tests set to come into force from the 2026-27 season. Under this system, squad cost will be capped at roughly 85% of a club's football-related revenue, with additional financial checks introduced, while the old profitability and sustainability rules are set to be phased out. In theory, this was meant to slow the endless growth of budgets and move the league closer to a regulatory model resembling European financial standards. But the very fact that this rethink took place and how long, difficult and contentious the discussions proved to be already shows that the replacement of PSR was far from unanimously supported. Now here's the funny part. They actually started arguing about this back in the summer of 2022, after another record window. It took 3 whole years for these executives and officials to actually agree on something. And get this, while they were busy debating for 3 years, summer transfer spending didn't just grow, it doubled, hitting a crazy £3 billion. The delay wasn't accidental. Many clubs and their legal teams threw wrenches in the gears at every turn. They still believe these new norms severely handcuff their commercial ambitions. They hated ideas like anchoring, time spent into the poorest team's budget, because it smelled too much like a salary cap. As a result, the legal departments of the affected clubs, alongside players' unions and of course the agent mafia, are already exploring potential legal challenges once the regulations come into force. And yet the existence of these rules, even in their final compromised form, does not mean they will change the logic of the game. Stick around, because a bit later I'm going to show you why these rules are just going to become a new playground for grey schemes, where financial engineering and creative accounting make it possible to work around even the new limits. But before we get to the loopholes, let's go back to that idea of spending as content.
And completely different to the English philosophy. We have to buy, we have to buy, we have to buy, we have to buy, and it's only all about transfers, all about transfers, all about transfers. So because I believe in training, but for training you need time and the right players. And if you don't have the right players, you have to make transfers. But you don't have to make transfers because you don't want to train, or you have no time to train, or whatever.
It took Liverpool exactly 10 years to finally ditch Klopp's principles and pull off the biggest, most expensive transfer campaign the game has ever seen. Liverpool spent nearly £500 million, smashing their own transfer records and the all-time Premier League record twice in a single summer. One would assume that if anyone could execute such a massive campaign competently, it would be the Reds. They spent years sitting back, avoiding the arms race and entering the market only for surgical, targeted additions. But Liverpool fell into a classic trap. The moment they stepped into the market with that much cash and such a huge to-do list, every selling club saw them coming and jacked up the price. But did this record-breaking campaign actually make the champions stronger? No, if anything, it did the opposite. They tried to do way too much with the attack in one summer and basically ignored the defense. And the price they are paying for that now is dropped points and a team that looks totally unbalanced. A similar example can be found in the Reds' fiercest rivals, Man United. In the summer of 25, they also broke several club records, and their campaign was equally unbalanced. It certainly didn't make Amorim's United strong enough to deliver the expected results, or to make Amorim himself feel secure in his job.
I came here to be the manager of Manchester United, not to be the coach. That was the deal, and it's going to be like this for 18 months, or when the board decided to change.
Yeah, United has its own issues. I broke that down in my last video, so definitely click the link in the description and watch that after this. But the trend is clear, prices and spending are skyrocketing. But is the actual football getting better? Are teams improving enough to justify that cash? Or are we just seeing transfers for the sake of transfers, just to keep up in this arms race? And let's not forget that last season City's hegemony was interrupted by a team that navigated the championship without multi-million-pound investments, and in essence without any transfers at all. A team that right before a massive rebuild decided to take a step back, pause and calmly survey the landscape to soberly assess their existing squad resources and understand exactly how the roster could be improved the following year. An approach that in today's Premier League looks almost like an anomaly. But then you have the total opposite example. Sunderland came back to the Prem after 8 years away and decided to spend big too. They smashed their transfer records, more than tripling their previous high. And what was the result? The Black Cats finished the first half of the season as one of the best newly promoted teams in the Premier League history, and currently sit in the top half of the table, trailing the champions by just 3 points. Over 70% of the team's goals have come from their summer signings. But the core issues lies elsewhere. Even these expenditures, even the campaigns launched by the league's smaller clubs, whether it works or fails, is totally impossible for clubs in continental Europe to match. And I'm not talking about their mid-table teams, I'm talking about the actual giants. Clubs that used to be equals are now physically unable to fight the Premier League for the same players. Moreover, in the past winter window, clubs from the USA and Brazil outspend continental Europe. Is that the new reality coming for us? You can see this gap clearest in the Champions League. It's supposed to be the peak of European football, but now it just reflects this insane financial inequality. Premier League teams that look like a mess at home, struggling, disjoint, in crisis, go into Europe and suddenly look like monsters. Look at Spurs, failing in the Prem, yet against European opposition they look physically and structurally leagues ahead. They look stronger than they have any right to be. This isn't about tactics or form anymore, it's about the baseline resources. It's about squad depth, pure athleticism and the luxury of rotating players without the team falling apart. Even a bottom-half Premier League team walks into Europe with a safety net that our clubs can only dream of. It's a systemic break. The Premier League has become its own economic zone, basically leaving the rest of the European market behind. They have their own rules, their own budgets, their own speed. Everyone else? They aren't competitors anymore, they are donors, just suppliers of players and coaches for a league that has left the rest of the world in the dust. The question isn't even who spends more anymore. The question is, can you even play the same game when one side is running a global entertainment business and the other is still trying to run a traditional football club? But let's return to the new Premier League rules. 3 years of discussions, debates and drafting various options, all to ensure that the gap between poor and rich clubs grows even wider. An initiative designed to tame the arms race appears poised to launch an even more massive escalation. The key fact you need to know: the primary advocates of the SCR model were precisely the big clubs who repeatedly expressed dissatisfaction with the previous rules. For example, Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos, literally upon arriving at Manchester United and sorting out the Glazers situation, declared that given the club's consistent unprofitability over several years, PSR severely limited their opportunities, despite the club continuing to generate record profits. Now United can record losses for another 5 years straight without it affecting their transfer market activity, even as the club's overall debt, including deferred transfer payments, has reached unprecedented levels never seen even under the Glazers. Old Jim worked hard on that, reminding you once again to watch my video about his unforgettable 2 years at the helm. And with this 85% revenue link, smaller clubs without the mega commercial deals, smaller stadiums and less matchday cash are screwed even worse than before. Before it was about running your club smart, but now it's all about stuff you can't control, especially when it's judged over just 1 year instead of 3 seasons like it used to be. And perhaps the most crucial aspect of the new rules: the rich can now completely ignore sporting sanctions because the Premier League has officially introduced an ambition tax. Even if you exceed the 85% threshold, no points will be deducted, no investigations or proceedings will be launched against you. You can officially push your transfer spending to 115% and simply pay a fine. And trust me, the big clubs' lawyers are already sharpening their pencils to find every loophole, appeal, technicality or sob story to slash those fines, or get them wiped out completely. Another critical blow to mid-tier and smaller clubs. Previously they had 1 to 2 seasons in reserve to develop their players and increase their value. Now they must sell faster to book the revenue within a single year's reporting period. Without the ability to compete with the top clubs through other revenue streams, they can only catch up through player sales. This means internal transfer fees will rise even higher. In essence, this is a genuine scheme presented to us as a pure benevolence, a framework the entire Premier League spent 3 long years perfecting. And I believe the topic of these new rules deserves a full dedicated video with deeper analysis and concrete examples. Drop a comment if you'd be interested in such a breakdown. Thanks for watching, I really appreciate your time, share your thoughts below, smash that like button, share with your mates, and of course subscribe. I'm finally dropping videos way more often. Take care and see you in the next one. Peace.